Okay, we want to go back to our breaking news tonight. The office of Senator John McCain confirming that he has been diagnosed with brain cancer.
Now, this comes just days after he underwent a surgery here in our state to remove a blood clot just above his eye. Political editor Dennis Welch joining us now live. And Dennis, a lot of statements pouring in, social media really blowing up about this story right now. Let's first talk about the statement from the office where you got this story confirmed.
Yeah, I mean, the statement came in late this afternoon, obviously, just within the last hour. So we're still really trying to digest all of this right now. I think like a lot of people out here, a lot of people in the political world, a lot of people out there just admire John McCain or voted for him, have watched his career for such a long time.
Regardless of party.
Regardless of party. I mean, a lot of people, I mean, certainly would respect him certainly for his service to the country in the past and really look up to him and admire him. And he is really, if you look over his career, really is a survivor. He'd survived that POW camp. He'd survived some brutal losses politically as he ran for president to continue to move on. He's a fighter. And, you know, in his statement here, they say that they are going to continue to fight this. Now, we don't know a lot about this cancer right now. We're going to be learning more, as a lot of people over the next, hours and coming days. But what we do know about this cancer is it's a very aggressive form of cancer.
Sure. Yes.
And it can hit anybody at any age, but it tends to be more common with people who are a little bit older out there.
And let's say the name again for our viewers out there. It's glioblastoma.
Glioblastoma?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. A very, very aggressive form, one of the most aggressive forms of cancer.
Yeah, and they are looking at various treatment options out there. It could be a mixture of chemotherapy as well as radiation, is what they're saying in the statements out there.
And that's what Mayo Clinic is now confirming, that they say that it will include a combination of chemotherapy and radiation. They also, Mayo Clinic made it very clear that they were releasing this information by permission from the family, that the family wanted to get that information out there. I've seen a statement from his daughter, Meghan McCain, said, if anyone's going to beat this, it's my dad. He is a fighter from the very beginning.
You know what's interesting, too, I saw earlier in the day that his son Jack had basically removed most of his tweets and said he was going to be taking a break from Twitter in a while, and that was just a few hours ago. So it's some pretty interesting information. Now, I want to kind of go back to that surgery that he had last week. Now, we spoke to, at least I spoke to a surgeon over at the Barrow Institute, one of the top brain surgeons, certainly in the Valley, maybe even in the country. And he'd speculated a lot, and he said, look, from just looking on the outside, he said, brain tumor at the time, it could have been a possibility, and unfortunately today that possibility actually became a reality.
And this is not his first bout with cancer, though. It's a completely different type of cancer. But
sure, he's battled some forms of skin cancer in the past, but obviously this is nothing compared to what this type of cancer is. But it is interesting, though, and when I did speak to that neurosurgeon, he did point to that, and he said it's awfully interesting that you had melanoma in the past. You have this craniotomy, which is a procedure. It's a very serious procedure where they cut above the eye, and they cut a hole in the eye to get access to the brain to remove this blood clot.
At any point today, have you heard anything about what were the symptoms that had them looking for a possible complication?
Not heard anything concrete, but the conventional wisdom I think out there is everybody is looking back about a month ago to that Senate committee hearing in which John McCain, admittedly, it wasn't his best performance out there when he was questioning, I believe it was Director Comey at the time.
Almost seemed confused on the issue of what was being discussed versus what McCain was talking about.
And at the time he said he had a long schedule, and up until very recently, Senator McCain he's kept a long schedule. He just didn't get, he was just in the Middle East. I mean, at that time of that committee, I think he was coming back from somewhere in Europe. This is a senator who travels around the world constantly, and so when he says, "Look, I may have not been on top of my game because I was tired and was traveling," well, that's very true. It's very much a possibility.
Let's talk about, and I mean this in no disrespect whatsoever, but the business of being a senator, a United States senator. It's all about being present, being in Washington, D.C., and John McCain, regardless of being a Republican or a Democrat, he was always in the middle of everything. Intelligence briefings, appropriations, and of course, basically, according to the office, further consultations with Senator McCain's Mayo Clinic care team will indicate when he will return to the United States Senate. If there's ever any time to be away from D.C., it would be right now.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, too, and there's no indication of any timetable as we're getting right now. And obviously, like as you were saying, right now is a big time in D.C. A lot of big questions that are big votes coming up. We're talking about the healthcare votes out there as they move for that. Big tax reform issues. And when you're talking about cancer, you don't want to necessarily be talking about all of this. But as you said, he is a sitting United States senator, and you do have to be present for these things. So again, no indication at this point how long he may be away from there.
I do want to read something from CNN Dr. Sanjay Gupta about this cancer. He says it is a very aggressive tumor. Survival for malignant glioblastoma tends to be around 14 months with treatment. And that the treatment actually cannot begin until the incision heals, which would be in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Also, a 2009 study reported that almost 10% of patients with glioblastoma live 5 years or longer. That's according to the American Brain Tumor Association. But he also noted that this is the same tumor that Ted Kennedy had.
Those numbers are just obviously grim. But I can only say again, going back to that idea, this idea of McCain has been a survivor his entire life. If anybody's going to fight this, it's going to be someone like him. I don't want to sound Pollyannish, but just look at the man's history.
He's the Maverick. That's what he was known as for so long, is the Maverick.
Yeah, and there's no reason to believe that he is going to change that right now. They, even in his statement today, they say that he's with his friends and he's in good spirits and he's recovering at his home here in Arizona. No reason to believe that he isn't planning to really fight this very aggressively.
All right, that is our political editor, Dennis Welch. We're going to let him go. He's going to work his sources, continue to follow this story. You can obviously follow him online on his social media accounts for the latest on John McCain. And we've got statements now rolling in, including this one from the senator's daughter herself, Meghan McCain, who now works for Fox News. She just issued this statement on Twitter. She is asking, of course, for prayers and says her family is grateful for all of them. She calls the senator the toughest person she knows and says cancer will never make him surrender.